Welcome to this explainer. Today we're tackling a question that honestly sparks so much silent stress for so many of us. Does spotting count as a period? I'm really glad you're here because we're going to take a close, super practical look at cycle tracking and that feeling of worship uncertainty. It's a topic that definitely deserves a calm, compassionate approach, completely free from judgment or panic. So let's just dive right in. We'll explore how to navigate those tricky moments when our bodies don't do exactly what a generic calendar predicted, and how to stay spiritually sensitive without getting overwhelmed. Let's start with the very first scenario that usually kicks off this whole journey.
Picture this. It's incredibly common. You go to the bathroom, you notice just one small spot, and honestly, the very first thought in your head isn't about your physical health, right? It's, wait, can I pray right now? Or maybe it's Ramadan and you immediately think, is my fast broken? Suddenly, prayer time is creeping up and you just feel this massive wave of anxiety. I want to validate that feeling right out of the gate. You're not wrong for wanting clarity. In fact, that sudden worry, it comes from a beautiful place. It comes from your deep desire to perform your worship correctly. But we really don't want you to stay stuck in panic mode. Let's look at what's actually causing this. The sudden worship uncertainty. That's exactly what this is. And we have to acknowledge the heavy emotional weight of this exact moment. For so many women, spotting feels incredibly stressful because, let's face it, generic period tracking apps just do not understand the spiritual implications of bleeding. They just ask, are you bleeding? Yes or no. But for us, the question is so much bigger than that. Does this mean I stop praying? Do I need to make ghusl? Again, you aren't wrong for wanting answers, but this uncertainty shouldn't make you feel like you failed or that your body is somehow broken. The very first step to finding clarity is actually changing the way we look at that initial moment.
So the absolutely crucial point to remember here is this. A spot is an observation. I really want you to let that sink in for a second. A spot is an observation. When you see a trace of color, it is simply a piece of data. It's a fact about what is happening in your body right at this precise moment. It's not necessarily the whole story, and it doesn't automatically mean you have to rush to some massive final decision about your period. When we shift our mindset from immediate panic to mindful observation, we take back control. We literally give ourselves permission to just calmly record what we're seeing. Notice the incredibly clean split here. On one side, we have the observation, what I actually saw. For example, a small red spot at 6:20 a.m. That is an indisputable fact. On the flip side, we have the conclusion, what I still need to clarify. Like, is this my period? Should I stop my prayers? The problem is that we so often try to jump straight from the observation to the conclusion in like 3 seconds flat. We see the spot and we instantly demand a final answer from ourselves. But right now, you don't have to have the conclusion. You just need to document the observation.
To do that effectively, there are 4 specific pieces of information you need to capture. When you see that spot, I want you to remember this rule. Track timing, color, amount, and whether it continued. Let's break that down real quick. Timing. When exactly did this happen? Was it in the morning, right after Fajr? Color. Was it red, brown, yellow, pink, clear? Amount. Was it just one single spot, a light trace, visible flow? And finally, continuation. Did it stop immediately or is it ongoing? These 4 crucial details change the entire nature of the question when you eventually go to seek guidance.
Now, it's really interesting to see how these details matter over time. Let's walk through a few common scenarios. Scenario 1. 1 hour passes. You had one spot and then absolutely nothing else for the rest of the day. Scenario 2. It's 2 days before your expected period and you see light spotting. Scenario 3. 5 days of repeated intermittent light spotting. Notice how totally different each of these timelines looks? Now, to be clear, we aren't making any legal rulings here about whether you should or shouldn't pray in these moments, because that entirely depends on your specific school of thought and your personal habit. But you can clearly see why a scholar would need to know if the spotting stopped after 1 hour or if it dragged on for 5 days. Context is absolutely everything.
Let's look at some edge cases on the timeline. Say it's day 25. An app predicted your period, but you have 0 bleeding. Or look at day 6. Your bleeding seemed to have stopped. You thought you had reached purity, but then you see brown discharge near the end of your cycle. Sequence changes everything. Seeing brown discharge 2 days before your period starts is a completely different observation than seeing it after you thought you were finished and had already made ghusl. You just can't rely on memory for these complex timelines, especially when you're already stressed about whether your worship is valid.
This brings us to a huge point of confusion for a lot of women. We often rely so heavily on period tracking apps, and we treat their guesses like absolute facts. But we need to contrast an app prediction with reality. On one side, we have the app prediction, which is really just a planning signal. It's basically the app saying, hey, based on averages, pay attention. On the other side, we have observed bleeding. This is what actually happened in reality. Remember, a prediction is not the same as what you actually saw. Just because your app has a red circle around today's date doesn't magically make your spotting a full period. Your actual physical observation always overrides a digital prediction.
So how do we keep all of this straight without losing our minds? Well, this is where Noor Tracker comes in as the ultimate tool for organizing these complex timelines. Noor Tracker is a faith-aligned cycle tracker designed specifically for Muslim women. It actually allows you to log spotting specifically as observations. It helps you preserve the exact details we talked about earlier: timing, color, amount, and continuation. It lets you compare predictions with your reality and beautifully shows you patterns across multiple cycles. Basically, Noor Tracker's guidance tools take the cognitive load right off your shoulders, so you don't have to reconstruct your cycle from memory while you're sitting there feeling anxious.
And honestly, this is the most empowering part. Noor Tracker can help organize the details before you ask for qualified guidance. You don't have to go to a scholar or a teacher feeling completely flustered, saying, I think I saw some brown stuff maybe on Tuesday, but it could have been Wednesday, and I have no idea when it stopped. Instead, the app helps you prepare a perfectly clear, organized timeline. You can say with confidence, I saw one red spot on Tuesday at 6 a.m. and nothing followed for 24 hours. Better notes lead to better, more accurate questions, which means more accurate answers for you.
But it's essential to know who to actually ask once you have those organized notes. We want to draw a crystal clear boundary here. When do you ask a scholar and when do you ask a clinician? Well, you ask a scholar when you're unsure about how your specific school of thought applies to your spotting, when you see repeated patterns affecting the worship, or when you're confused about the rules of purity and ghusl. On the other hand, you ask a clinician, like a doctor or healthcare professional, if your bleeding is medically unusual, if it's super heavy, prolonged, or if you're experiencing severe pain. Both types of guidance are vital, and your organized notes are going to help both of them help you.
As we establish those boundaries, I want to be incredibly clear about the role of the tracker. Noor Tracker does not issue fatwas or diagnose medical conditions. It is a powerful tool to help you track what you see, understand your patterns, and manage your worship uncertainty with a sense of calm and clarity. But it completely respects the deeply important roles of Islamic scholarship and medical professionals. The tracker isn't going to make a definitive ruling for you, because true clarity in those ambiguous edge cases, that requires qualified human expertise.
So, the next time you see a spot right before prayer time, I really want you to just take a deep breath. You don't have to panic, you just have to observe. Remember to track the timing, color, amount, and continuation. Let the tracker handle the timelines so you can focus on finding the right guidance with total peace of mind. If you could approach your cycle with calm curiosity instead of sudden panic, imagine how that would transform your daily worship. Start with what you observed, not what you fear. Learn more at noortracker.com.